Welcome to the study session where we are breaking down the BCBA 6th edition test content outline. Today we are focusing on Task A.5, which requires us to identify and describe the 7 dimensions of applied behavior analysis as established by the legendary paper from Baer, Wolf, and Risley in 1968.
If you're studying for the BCBA exam, you've probably heard these referred to as the 7 pillars or the DNA of ABA. Even though Domain A is only 5% of the exam, or about 8 questions, you cannot afford to miss these. They define the difference between doing actual behavior analysis and just trying things out.
Exactly. Let's start with the first one, applied. This dimension is all about social significance. We aren't just doing research in a lab with rats to see what happens, we are choosing behaviors to change that actually enhance and improve the client's life.
Right. We're asking, does this matter to the human being sitting in front of me? If you're teaching a nonverbal teenager to label 500 types of tropical fish just because it's an easy data point, that's not very applied. But if you're teaching them how to dress themselves independently, that is a skill meaningful to their daily life.
Next is behavioral. This means we focus on observable and measurable behaviors. In ABA, we don't measure frustration or low self-esteem because you can't see those directly. We measure what the person actually does.
I like to use the example from the sources. You can observe someone's writing behavior, and then you can measure that behavior by counting the words or checking the legibility. If a supervisor asks for data and you give them a feeling, you've failed the behavioral dimension. We need facts we can count and see.
The third dimension is analytic. This is where we prove we aren't just guessing. To be analytic, we must demonstrate experimental control over the occurrence and non-occurrence of the behavior.
This is basically showing a functional relation. For example, if you introduce a DRA, or differential reinforcement of alternative behavior, and the problem behavior stops, but then you briefly remove the DRA and the behavior comes back, you've proved that your intervention is what's controlling the behavior. It's about proving that X caused Y.
Fourth, we have technological. This is the recipe dimension. All procedures must be described clearly and concisely so that others may implement them accurately.
This is huge for consistency. If you are transferring a case to a different BCBA, they shouldn't have to call you every 5 minutes to ask what you meant. They should be able to read your plan and implement your interventions exactly like you are at that moment. If your protocol says, give him a break when he looks sad, that's not technological. If it says, provide a 30-second break following 10 minutes of on-task behavior, now we're talking.
Fifth is conceptually systematic. This means we don't just pull tricks out of a hat. All of our interventions should be consistent with basic behavior principles.
So, if you want to teach your client how to imitate, you don't use some random theory you saw on a morning talk show. You design the intervention using basic behavior principles like reinforcement and prompting. It keeps our field grounded in actual science rather than passing fads.
Sixth is effective. This one is the bottom line. The behavior change must be statistically significant and socially valuable to the client or family.
In other words, did it actually work? If a child goes from hitting 50 times a day to 45 times a day, that might be, statistically, a change, but it's not effective if the family still can't go to a restaurant. We want to increase a skill, like dressing independently, to the point where they can do it fully independently in the real world. If the change isn't big enough to improve their life, we need a better plan.
Finally, we have generality. A behavior change is only a true success if it lasts. It needs to appear in other environments and ideally spread to other behaviors.
We don't want clinic-only skills. If a child uses their communication device perfectly with their therapist, but throws it at their mom at home, you haven't achieved generality yet. We want the behavior to be durable across time, people, and settings.
If you can keep these 7 filters in mind, you'll be able to spot the right answer in almost any Domain A scenario. For more practice identifying these dimensions in clinical mock questions, check out www.bcbamockexam.com.
Catch you later.
Bye.